Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I know this amendment has gotten a lot of attention over the last few days. This amendment would send this private school voucher bill to the voters of Texas for their approval before it can be implemented. This idea to send the issue of vouchers to the voters originally came from Governor Rick Perry last year. And then a few weeks ago, a group of conservative grassroots activists came up with the idea of an amendment that would do exactly that. They call themselves MAGA moms. These are not activists I typically work with, but this issue of private school vouchers brings people together across the political spectrum. A few days ago, there was growing bipartisan support in this chamber for this common sense idea. But then the governor of our state started calling members into his office one by one and threatening to veto all the bills of any member who votes for this amendment, threatened to make their primary elections, quote, a bloodbath. So this morning, I decided to carry this amendment. Not only because it's a good idea, not only because it's what our constituents want, but also to make a very important point. No one, including the governor, should ever threaten a lawmaker. We do not serve the governor. We serve our constituents. The governor is saying that putting vouchers to the voters is unconstitutional. That's not true. The way I know it's not true is because, as Attorney General, Greg Abbott wrote about statewide referenda and never raised constitutional concerns. The governor is saying there is no historical precedent for sending vouchers to the voters. That's also not true. There were statewide referenda in 1986, 1989, and 2006 on controversial topics. Lastly, the governor is saying Texans have already voted on vouchers. That's also not true. One, because there are a lot more people in this state than Republican primary voters, and this voucher will affect all of us in ways both big and small. Second, I think we all know that the primaries last year were not fought on vouchers. None of the TV ads, none of the mailers that the governor funded against our colleagues were about vouchers. And so I'm a little confused because the governor has said private school vouchers are wildly popular. And so if he's telling the truth, I would think this referendum would have no trouble passing. I would also think the governor would welcome an opportunity to finally have a mandate on this controversial topic. Texans have been fighting about vouchers for 70 years. The first voucher bill was proposed in this Capitol in 1957. And we've been fighting about it ever since. So if any issue should go to the voters, it's this one. We're sending a lot less to the voters for their approval this session alone. And believe me, this body has been very clear that anytime taxes may go up, the taxpayers should have a say. And by creating a new parallel education system that will cost billions of dollars every biennium, this voucher bill will absolutely raise property taxes. And so I think the taxpayers should have a say before it's implemented. Members, regardless of where you are on this bill, you know that I'm passionately against vouchers. That's no secret. There are friends of mine in this chamber who are passionately for vouchers, and that's fine. That's what this body is all about. But let me just make a pitch on why we should all support letting the voters get their say. It's the only thing that'll put this issue to bed. Because believe me, even if this passes, we'll be back here next session and the session after that and the session after that fighting about vouchers, fighting about loosening regulations, fighting about expanding funding, fighting about changing eligibility. This fight will never end. The only way for it to end is for Texans to get their say on this issue. I know that you're under a lot of pressure from the governor. I know that. I get that. I know that's not easy. But last time I checked, this legislature was a separate and equal branch of our state government. The last time I checked, we still had separation of powers in this state. The last time I checked, this was still the people's house, not the governor's house. All of that is at risk with this vote on this amendment. So regardless of where you are on this bill, I'm asking you to stand with me on this amendment. Let Texans approve this measure. Let Texans get a say. I urge you to vote for this amendment for our constituents, for our Constitution, and for this House.